Oversight Chair James Comer has invited President Biden to testify in the GOP impeachment inquiry. It's investigating corruption allegations against the president. Comer sending a letter to the president saying evidence shows the president has, quote, repeatedly been untruthful when claiming he had no business interactions with his son Hunter and brother James. The president's take on that has changed over the years as we learned more and more about his involvement. Watch.
I've never discussed my business or their business, my sons or daughters.
Never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period.
The president was never in business with his son. I just don't have anything else to add.
I can tell you that Hunter did not share his business with his dad.
My father was not financially involved in my business.
White House spokesman Ian Sams posted a snarky response, quote, LOL. Comer knows 20-plus witnesses have testified that POTUS did nothing wrong. He knows that the hundreds of thousands of pages of records have refuted his false allegations. This is a sad stunt at the end of a dead impeachment. Call it a day, pal. Jonathan Turley, Fox News contributor, George Washington University law professor and constitutional law attorney, is here. Where do you see, by the way, a blessed Good Friday to you, Jonathan. Where do you see this going from here for Comer and the Republicans?
Well, the Republicans are not being deterred by any of this. What is really shocking is that Sams is actually with the White House counsel's office. I can't remember an administration that had a White House counsel's office that engaged so directly in taunting and attacking legal inquiries from Congress. I mean, this is an impeachment inquiry. It's the most important possible process that a president and Congress are engaged in. And yet you have a member of the legal counsel's office mocking and taunting that effort. The fact is that the president's public statements to the public stand completely contradicted. He lied. He lied when he said he had not spoken to business associates. He lied when he said he didn't have knowledge of these business dealings. The point of this letter that is key is that in 7 pages, it reduces all of those contradictions to 10 simple questions that the president can answer, not engage in taunting, not engaging in the type of attacks by Sams, but to answer the questions for the American people. But the reason they're doing this is because they have license to do it. The media has no interest at all in the answers to these 10 questions. They bought into this illusion, essentially, that was created by the Biden team, and they've just gone too far. They can't ask any of these questions themselves, and that's what Sams and the White House know, is that there's not going to be any push by the media to answer any of these questions.
Yeah, I'm sure Biden was not confronted with any of that on that little podcast that he recorded with Obama and Clinton yesterday. That's just a guess on my part. On to this, former President Trump's Georgia election case resumed yesterday. The first action since the judge ruled Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis could stay on. Trump and the other defendants are expected to appeal that decision. Attorneys for Trump and his co-defendants are looking to get the case dismissed. They argue the charges punish the former president for protected political speech, clearly violating his First Amendment rights. Critics call the case a sham and argue that it's not a good one.
This case stinks. The only thing they've ever done together is get indicted. And the idea that they're a RICO organization like the Gambino family is one of the more preposterous things I've seen.
I found it fascinating that the county attorney, you may have heard him make reference to the pattern. The pattern is the part of the racketeering charge, a pattern of corruption or criminal activity that has to be presented. And he's throwing that in because the indictment itself is incredibly weak in terms of its treatment of a pattern of criminal behavior.
Jonathan, what's the likelihood that this case gets tossed out?
Well, the problem here is the timing. When this case was filed, I wrote columns saying I have serious free speech problems with what they are doing here. President Trump is entitled to question the election. Democrats have done that. Democrats in the past have opposed certification of elections. That's all protected speech. And he could be wrong. I actually criticized some of his views at the time. I did not agree with a lot of these allegations. But he has a right to raise them, as do his supporters. And this does criminalize political speech in a way that is dangerous. The problem is the timing. What the prosecutors are arguing is, we'll prove it. Just give us time. Let us go to the trial. The problem is the indictment. It doesn't really make any true or standard racketeering claims. There's no evidence of a conspiracy other than the president saying, I think I won the election, and I think that there is election fraud or improprieties here. Many politicians have done that. So the question for the judge is, can he at this stage say, you are essentially criminalizing free speech? Most courts don't. But it's something to seriously consider. You know, this would mean the prosecutors could pull any number of political groups through a trial before they get any real review of the free speech claims.
And I didn't even ask you about the possibility of getting an impartial jury, given Fani Willis can't be quiet in Atlanta. Jonathan Turley, thank you so much. Terrific to see you, always.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.